Now I will try to share my screen with you. Okay, I think that now you can see my slides. Let me know if anything is wrong. Okay. Well, I assume that everything is okay now. Well, the lecture today comes from a lesson that I had some years ago to a summer school for PhD students in biomedicine. It was a 4 hours lesson, but don't worry, I shrinked and cut to no more than 1 hour. Today's topics will be about the definition of telemedicine and electronic health. We can see a lot of definitions, and I will try to give you an interpretation, okay? The meaning of medicine 4.0, because everybody today is speaking of industry 4.0, so I decided to introduce medicine 4.0. And after we will see some applications where new wearable devices are developed for remote monitoring of vital signs from people. Today is a very interesting topic. Okay, after 2 or 3 slides about artificial intelligence, today everything is supposed to be artificial intelligence, but what is really artificial intelligence? Let me try to speak with no more than 3 slides, this concept. And last but not the least, we are the IEEE instrumentation and measurement. So I will conclude this presentation with some consideration about what's the connection between artificial intelligence and instrumentation and measurement society. Okay, this was a document coming from the Italian Ministry of Health no more than 10 years ago, and they said, okay, we have a good evolution of demographics, so everything is changing, and we have to consider modification to the health needs of the population. We have a growing share of elderly, and this means a growing share of chronic disease. And so we need to redesign the structural and organizational network of services, specifically with a view to strengthening the territorial area of systems. Good words, but nothing done today. I mean, Italy is just a small country in comparison with India, but we have similar problems. I mean that we don't have so many hospitals, so medical health services in our country. So often people need to travel for hundreds of kilometers to join a hospital. This problem with COVID was very, very serious. So in 2010, the ministry told, okay, we have to delocalize services. We need not to have only few big hospitals, but a lot of remote services. Nothing was done. Okay, let me show you some differences about telemedicine and electronic health. When we speak about electronic health, we speak of the application of technologies to help patients manage their own illness. So electronic health is a sort of technological approach to problems of everybody, and give the possibility to monitor in a remote problems of people. People usually are elder people, so we need to have an easy to use electronic health, very efficient. By the way, if you have a look to internet, you find a lot of definition of e-health. So everything now can be defined as e-health. Also, devices not related to nothing. What's the difference between e-health and telemedicine? Telemedicine is not the technology, but is the use of technology. So when we have technologies, we can diagnose, monitor, and treat patients in a remote way. So everything can be considered telemedicine, remote monitoring, video telephony, medical assisted treatment, telenursing, tele. Tele means that you have services able to work far from the patient. And this is important because today you know that with COVID, we need to be far from the patient. Okay, this is a possible scenario where we have a lot of devices able to communicate with, for example, professional consultants to make a diagnosis. And to do this, we need also education because the people is not used to use telemedicine. And also we need to have a care coordination. And people can use video conference, telephone, they need to have a patient portal, special remote devices. We will see, for example, electrocardiogram. It's impossible that a person is able to make his own electrocardiogram using traditional devices. So this is a lot of items to be considered to go in telemedicine. Okay, this is a possible scenario that today physicians tried to use here, and this is a medical doctor in a central station, and he's trying to have remote patients using, for example, electrocardiograms, you can see here, or a pressure monitor, or oximetry, and so on. So this is quite easy to be used by professionals, but it's not so easy to be used by normal people. And when normal people are 90 years old, for example, it's very difficult. So we have to rethink, to redesign this scenario. So why telemedicine is important today? We have two items to consider. In the 50s, we have a big baby boom. And so today, we have a lot of elder people. More than 60 years is normal. COVID reduced this number, unfortunately. By the way, we still have a lot of people with a lot of disease. They require monitor of chronic disease. And also, people life expectancy is increased. Think that in Italy and in Europe, at the beginning of the 19th century, the average life was 21 years below today. So people's life increased, but our body is the same. So a lot of disease. And so this need that we have requirements to have more and more persons with medical assistance. Very good. It's simple, the solution. We increase medical doctors and no problem. Yes, this is a scientific approach, but unfortunately, we don't have so much money. I have to say that today we have less money than some years ago. So it's impossible to increase the number of medical doctors, but unfortunately, the number of patients is increasing. And so the main solution can be the delocalization of the services. Few medical doctors, a lot of service, remote services. But not only, today we also have a big problem with COVID. And so this means that we can't have any physical contact between people. So physician, patient, relatives must stay away from each other. So the question is, how can a doctor visit the patients without being in his home? This is the question. where telemedicine can give a help. Okay, how? Electronic health. Electronic health means to have new ways to remote monitoring human parameters. Remote patients can have their smartphone, and everybody has a smartphone connected to internet. So a lot of information can be sent dealing with important human disease, vital signs, and so on. For example, if you need electrocardiogram, and this is very important for atrial fibrillation, that today is still the main cardiological disease all over the world, also worse than COVID. Incredible, but it's still the worst case. So electrocardiogram is important. Photoplethysmography is again important because you can have meaningful information about the efficiency of your respiratory system. And you know that one of the most important signs of COVID-19 is the loss of efficiency of our respiratory system. So photoplethysmography is mandatory to understand which problem you have, if you have just a flu or maybe COVID. Image processing is one of our last powerful system. Everybody has a smartphone again, so it's easy to have electronic cameras, and you don't need any other person showing you how to use a smartphone. Maybe for elder people this can be difficult, but we have to think to education and to have some helps to take picture. When you are able to take picture, you can send picture to a remote physician and he can monitor wounds and other similar problems. So again, image processing is one of the main approach to remote, to delocalization assistance. If we have very simple electronic device, I mean ECE, photoplethysmography, cameras, to be used in a very simple way, we can have elder people without caregivers. This is difficult because my father is 95 years old and he has a lot of difficulties to adapt himself to modern technology. So we maybe have to rethink to electronic devices to be used also by elder people. Okay, this was our first remote device. You can find a lot of papers in journals. This is, for example, in Sensors, describing this device. I have a movie, it's just a short movie. Unfortunately, it's in Italian, but I will translate for you. Let me show you the meaning of electrocardiogram on the remote. Okay, you see the red one is our first prototype. Today is different. And this is a very low cost, few euros smartphone. Okay, and you see that just with one finger, the person is able to activate the electrocardiogram app. Just 10 seconds, no more, because other people have no time. And you can see just in 10 seconds the electrocardiogram on your smartphone. Okay, you are not an expert, no problem. You can see heartbeat, electrocardiogram if you have experience. But if you have no experience, you have an envelope, a virtual envelope, but you can send an email to a remote cardiologist, to a remote health system, and they receive this data, and they have special programs able to analyze, you see here, the electrocardiogram and have measurements. This is regular, for example, but I have to say that just 2 years ago, I was able to detect an atrial fibrillation on myself and immediately sent the email to my cardiologist, and he was able to understand the problem. So the remote patient only has to use a finger, a smartphone, and a low-cost device, and the assistance is in a remote system. So the idea is to have one-touch devices. I mean that when you have to mount a device to take measurements, maybe it's useless for normal people, okay? And so I received an email to take over the session. Okay, I don't know if this is an old message. Is everything okay now? Can you send me a chat saying if everything is okay?
Yes, sir. It's everything is clear, sir.
Sir? Everything is clear, sir.
Sir? Sir, everything is clear, sir.
Sir, everything is clear, sir. You can proceed, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will go on. Okay, so the general idea is that today traditional devices are useful for medical doctors or for nursery, but not for normal people, specifically for elder people. So we have to create new devices. My idea is one-touch device, where you use only just one finger and nothing else. Few seconds and an automatic way to send the information to a remote physician. So, for example, also sphygmomanometer, you know that to measure blood pressure, usually you have a sphygmomanometer, but sphygmomanometer are not so precise. I mean that you have a big error, and specifically, one of the main problems is to have the right position, the right fastening, to have the cuff in the right position. So usually a caregiver is present to help you. This means a waste of resources, of course, and with COVID, it's impossible. So you have to develop a new concept for this medical device. Another good motivation for these devices is that we can short hospital stay and go home in a fast way. For example, today, you know that here, but I think you too, have big problems with beds in hospital. So if we needed to stay in hospital for a longer period, maybe we don't have enough beds. Okay, for COVID, it's impossible, I know. But for traditional surgery, usually after the surgery, the patient has to stay in the hospital 4 or 5 days just to be monitored. So the idea is to shorten this period and the patient can go home, but he needs to have remote instruments to check his vital sign. So, for example, coming back to electrocardiogram, the idea is to measure voltages without removed dresses, place electrodes. Everybody knows that electrocardiogram is a complex procedure where you have to remove dresses and put some plates on your chest and so on. So no, this is a wrong way. Paper, every ECE usually is printed on a pink paper. Okay, this is a waste of paper, and moreover, paper is paper. I mean that only a medical doctor is able to read a paper. We need signals which can be used by automatic computers, for example. And moreover, if you are able to have these portable electrocardiogram devices, you don't lose time. I don't know in India, but in Italy, you lose a lot of time to make a reservation, to go from your house to a hospital. You lose a lot of time waiting your way to have electrocardiogram. Okay, with a remote device, just 10 seconds and no more. And this is again a strong motivation for electronic health. So we can also have automatic diagnosis, but we have some instruments to make automatic diagnosis. But by now, we use remote physicians which receive signals and can give a report. And for some important disease, for example, atrial fibrillation, we have automatic tools to make a warning saying, okay, be careful, you have an atrial fibrillation, please call immediately a medical doctor. So we try to cut unnecessary visits to the doctor office and to have a better service when you need an assistance. You can have an assistance in a very fast way with a very fast diagnosis. And of course, when you have a problem, you can be at home alone with no other human contacts. Today, this is important because we had a lot of deaths and bigger problems related to COVID, but not due to COVID. Problem is that COVID now is dominating the health scenario. So if you have other disease, you have no possibility. Hospitals are completely full. You don't have any possibility to have a special contacts or diagnosis. So again, suitable instruments can be used by yourself at home, and this is a good motivation. Okay, now just to have a look to 1.0, 2.0, and so on. For industry is a classical definition. We usually say that in 1784, we have the first step of industry, industry 1.0, where we have steam power, for example, and this is considering the beginning of modern industry. 100 years after, industry 2.0, when the electrical energy was available for production. Again, 100 years after, 1969, industry 3.0, when the computers, electronics changed completely the scenario of production. Today, we say that we have industry 4.0, where we have artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, networks, and so on. So modern plans use this new concept of industry 4.0. And for medicine, medicine is not so fast. Usually the medicine innovation is lower. So I tried to make a taxonomy starting from medicine 1.0, where Watson and Crick described the DNA structure. So we have the possibility to know the cellular biology. And medicine 2.0, when we were able to sequence the human genome. So we are able to understand the origin of diseases. Medicine 3.0, well, when both biologists and engineers were able to work together. This is an important step to different knowledge, and working together, we have good results. Today, medicine 4.0, okay, today we have the possibility to have the digitization of a process, to have a communication for the health system. And so we are using electronic systems, instruments, we convert analog signal to digital. Okay, this is the item where the instrumentation and measurement society can give a significant contribution. This can be our mission. Okay, ICT in medicine, you can find a lot of papers, cyber pills communicating with physicians, intelligent tattoos able to detect a lot of parameters, or brain-computer interface, implanted microchip, and so on. So a lot of science fiction devices. You can find just some exemplar, but okay, they will be common in future, but today we are still experimenting these ICT devices. But coming back to the goal of Medicine 4.0, the goal is to be able to have a remote monitoring diagnosis. So we need to cut unnecessary visits. This means that we don't want to cut visits, okay? We still need doctor's office, absolutely. But often people has to go to the doctors with a poor symptoms. So if we have devices able to check these symptoms, we use medical doctors only for serious disease. And another motivation for Medicine.0 is to prevent dangerous conditions. And this means that we improve the quality of the health service. So we need the new technologies for smart sensor. Here, for example, you see a lot of possibilities, an app able to detect a lot of diseases. This is image processing. We are using a special echo-Doppler system able to detect COVID with just an image, and artificial intelligence. Okay, telemedicine is a word. Today, often when I have a look to companies offering telemedicine services, I see just a speech using a smartphone or a tablet between a patient and a remote physician. I call this friend phone, okay? Call a friend to have a speech. But this is not telemedicine. It's useful because sometimes older people have problems and they are alone, so they need to speak. And so this is useful, but it's not telemedicine. Telemedicine is different. We need to check vital signs of patients. Last year, with a strong situation of COVID, our systems proposed this baggage. Inside the baggage, you have a lot of instruments for ECE, fever, oximetry, and so on. This was very expensive, and a medical doctor was requested to go home to the patients and to make analysis. Of course, the physician has to protect himself against the virus. So very expensive and not effective. Maximum 10 patients per day. Okay, in Italy we are 65 millions. In India, you have a huge number of persons. So this approach is completely useless. We need to change. Okay, these are new instruments. These are first experiments, and you see here just a small integrated circuits, small devices, and the idea is easy to use. So no difficulty for elder people. Low cost. If we need to give a lot of these devices to everybody, cost should be low. A few euros here, a few dollars, okay? They must be fast because we cannot wait hour and hour to have a result. And the idea to have all these performances is to use a smartphone. So the device is communicating to a smartphone by means of a Bluetooth connection, and the smartphone is connected and can send an email to a remote physician to have a possible diagnosis, but also self-diagnosis for serious disease. I don't really think that an elder people is able to understand electrocardiogram, but if we have artificial intelligence applied to these instruments, we can have a very fast diagnosis just for very bad situation like. Okay. This is electrocardiogram today. You see, you need to call the medical doctor, you need to go to the studio or to the hospital, you need to undress, to sit on a bed, you need a lot of electrodes and a very expensive machine and so on. So this is today's situation. It's clear that if you have a serious problem, you need a lot of time to have this analysis. Maybe the serious problem was really serious and it's too late. So we need another approach. The approach is wearable devices. So wearable devices are very simple devices where you can have just a measurement with no paper, no reservation, no travel, and just a remote physician is able to give you a report. You can say, okay, but I know that several wearable devices are today available, but usually are for fitness. They are not medical devices. We need to change the approach because medical devices need to have a certification. This means that they must be tested on a huge number of persons before using. Okay, I told that the diagnosis is using artificial intelligence. Today, artificial intelligence is used in everything. So everybody is saying, okay, my device, my paper, my approach is artificial intelligence. Oh, really? But what does it mean, artificial intelligence, really? Just to choose slides and no more. I will need hours to show you, but just to make the point of the situation. The term artificial intelligence comes from a group of United States scientists in the 50s, and they tried to build a machine, a computer, able to replace the human brain. Okay, it was a big deal, sure, but they received a lot of money, okay, because a lot of industries, but also the army, was interested to have an artificial brain. After a few years, they understood that it was impossible to replace the human brain, and so artificial intelligence based on high-level language, Prolog, Lisp, were a failure. This was a top-down approach, so they didn't consider how is organized a human brain. No neuron, no synapses in this approach, only the idea of how a brain is thinking. Okay, in the 80s, they have a new idea, expert systems. For example, a medical doctor can be replaced by an expert system, again, a software program using Lisp, and the Lisp machine was supposed to replace the human brain of a medical doctor. Again, a failure, okay? Some success, but main failure. So this was artificial intelligence. But at the same time, we have another approach, artificial neural networks. So scientists started with a bottom-up approach. So two scientists, McCallum and Pitts, in 1942, created a very simple mathematical model of a human neuron and a human synapses. And they built a very simple network, perceptron, able to model the behavior of a neuron and of a synapses. Can we use this approach to build a complete artificial brain to replace human brain? No, not now, because human brain has 10 to 11 neurons and 10 to 13 synapses. No, absolutely no technology is able to build a huge number of these neurons. But if we try to use this approach with a new model that is called a deep neural network or a convolutional neural network, we can find a local solution. For example, facial recognition, or the building of a three-dimensional protein, natural language processing, and so on. So the idea is to use this bottom-up approach to develop very simple application, human-like, okay? And we are able, for example, to recognize words. I don't know if you use Alexa, and this system is able to recognize voice, words, commands from everybody. And also in medical diagnosis, we use some neural network, some deep neural network that is able to solve a problem, not to replace brain, but to solve a problem. And this is the new frontier of artificial intelligence. Okay, where can we work with this approach? Okay, today we have a lot of electronic technology able to measure a lot of signals, but we can think to artificial intelligence to be a solution to find an interpretation of this data. For example, you see here a photoplethysmography, where you can see a photoplethysmography image coming from your wrist, can be used to understand something about your bloods. Well, this can be a solution with artificial intelligence, and so on. So this is the deep learning model that we are using to solve a lot of problems. And with this model, for example, we replace the traditional sphygmomanometer, where you have a cuff and you need a technique to understand the meaning of blood pressure. Blood pressure is one of our main challenge, because when you speak of blood pressure, the golden standard all over the world is an intra-arterial catheter, where medical doctors are able to measure, to monitor blood pressure. But intra-arterial means to cut the arterial, to put a device inside, so it's just invasive. So this is the golden standard, but it's used only in serious cases in hospitals. Nobody, I think, is using this technique to measure blood pressure. And the sphygmomanometer, you can have a sphygmomanometer on your arm with a medical doctor using a gauge able to give the value of systolic and diastolic pressure. You need a medical doctor. You can have also self-measured blood pressure, and they use the same principle of a cuff, but usually you can have automatic system inflating the cuff on your arm or on your wrist, and you will have a gauge measuring your blood pressure. This method, I have to say, has big errors, and so it's easy to use, but the values of the blood pressure is not so reliable, okay? You can find a paper in cognitive computation where we speak about deep learning techniques for arterial blood pressure prediction. The approach is we change everything, okay? We don't use invasive instruments. We don't use instruments which need an expertise to be used, such as arm cuffs or wrist cuffs and so on. So you don't need nothing. And we need to use a low-cost version, okay. all these are our items. How can I say? We are engineers, so we started using mathematical models. Today, 2 mathematical models are available to measure pressure, but let me show you, for example, the Young model. The Young model, this is an arteria, is able to measure the pulse wave velocity. It is the speed of the blood pressure pulse that is traveling along the circulatory system. So you have blood coming from the heart, hope, okay? You can use this model to measure the blood pulse wave velocity. But let me show you a model. You need the thickness of the vessel, an arteria, the blood density, the diameter of the vessel. Okay, it's really difficult to have all these parameters. And so mathematical model, okay, but impossible to be used. We can find another mathematical model due to function, the function model, where we measure the pulse transit time through the vessel, that is the time taken by the pressure waveform to propagate through the blood vessel, the arteria, to the peripheral branches. Again, here we have a mathematical model. You need to know the blood density and the arterial blood pressure. And again, you see here a lot of parameters, so just a bit less invasive of a Young model, but the precision is really poor. So both these models are not used by medical doctors. They still use sphygmomanometer. Okay, this is our proposal. Our proposal is to use an instrument that you see here on your wrist. It's again one touch. You put your finger on this metal plate to take the electrocardiogram, and a second finger here, okay, on a phototransistor and LED that are used to make a photoplethysmography analysis. So with these instruments, we have these 2 signals, ECE, electrocardiogram, and PPG, photoplethysmography, okay? But we are using a 30 euros instruments, just 1 finger, 2 fingers, okay? And this is a big difference with previous instruments, okay? We have an app on a smartphone able to give you the arterial blood pressure. How? We use an artificial neural network able to receive both ECG and PPG signals and giving you the value of the blood pressure. It's a good method. Let me show. Okay. To check this approach, we used an American database coming from American hospitals. It's a very useful database called MIMIC. And you have a lot of values coming from patients with ECG, PPG, and arterial blood pressure coming from invasive measurement. So you have a reference, a golden standard for blood pressure, okay? And this is the database, and they gave us also the sphygmomanometer measurements. You can see here that with a good sphygmomanometer, the error in diastolic is 4.1 and in systolic is 4.7. Okay, not very high, but not neglectable. Using our neural network on the same data, the error was reduced to 3.2 and systolic 3.6. You see that the error is less than this one. So the neural network, or you can call artificial intelligence if you prefer, but it's a deep neural network, is able to have the pressure values with high precision. So this can be a solution for future low-cost devices, very fast measurements. And, okay. I think that I have still time just for one measure. I have several cases, but I see that we have lost a lot of time at the beginning. So this is in our cases that we solved using medical doctors, phlebologists, to analyze ulcer. This is again a typical disease for elder people where you have a problem to your legs and you have to find a solution to solve the ulcer problem. Let me show you. This is a typical elder people problem, and usually patients have to go to a medical doctor's studio, and the medical doctor is looking at your ulcer in your legs and saying, okay, is good or bad? If it's good, continue with this therapy, okay? Very simple therapy. And if it's not good, you can change therapy. So these are the only indications. And our idea is that it's useless that you go to a medical doctor studio just to have a visual analysis of your problems. You can use, for example, here we use WhatsApp, but we can use WeChat or our photographical application on a smartphone. You can take a picture of your leg and send the image to the medical doctor studio. He has an artificial neural network which is able to extract the ulcer. Here you have a typical example. This is a very simple ulcer. You can see that it's inside your leg and has different colors, different sizes. And we use artificial intelligence to segment, to insulate the ulcer from the other tissue, and to have an analysis giving the wound area and different colors. This is useful because every color is associated with a situation of your ulcer. So you can have a fibrotic tissue, or you can have necrotic tissue, very bad, or you can have a good pink color where you can find that the edges of your wounds are healing. So this is completely automatic, and the program is able to detect the size of each tissue and the color. This is a result just to show you a patient, the patient number 2 of our analysis. You see that we started on March 11 and we finished on June 8th. So March, April, May, June. Okay, just a typical period where your ulcer can give good results or bad results. Okay, this was a good result. And the evolution of the ulcer increased in the first week, and after decreased. And here can be considered okay. And this is an analysis of 2 areas, for example. The red area, that is a bad area, is decreasing, and here is very low. And the pink area is a good tissue and is increasing. Okay, so at the end of this analysis, the automatic tool, the artificial neural network, is able to say if everything is good. But if everything is not good before, okay, if everything is not good before, our artificial neural network is warning the medical doctor, please tell to the patients to come here. So at the end, the patient can stay at home. If he's lucky, of course, because if he has a problem, he has to go to the hospital. And you have a constant updated medical history, and the medical doctor has a quantitative assessment because the tool can evaluate also the area of each tissue. It's a low-cost system, Okay, deep neural networks has a problem. They need a lot of data. So this tool to be certified need to have a huge number of images. So it should be used in hospital to have a certification. Okay, just to go to the finish of this lecture, a problem using artificial intelligence is precision and accuracy. Remember that we are the IEEE Instrumentation and Measurement Society. So for us, precision and accuracy are very important problem. And in our approach, we have images that are analog images converted to digital because they need to be transmitted using a smartphone. And an analog neural network is used to perform a digital work. Which limits do we have in this approach? Usually, you know, for people who works with artificial neural network, they can be considered black boxes, okay? And they try to guess numbers. Numbers, how reliable can be considered? And another strong point is that artificial neural networks are famous today to be able to generalize. This is one of the strong points of a neural network. They are able to understand voices coming from different people. So they are general tools. They are able not to distinguish different voices. They are able to understand words coming from different sources. So they are general tools. But in the measurement world, this is not a good approach. This is a weak point. So this is an open question that we will find to have a solution in the next years. So I think that is late. So I neglect the last case. And I conclude with telemedicine and artificial intelligence can be a solution for a future medical world. Unfortunately, we measure medical data in a different way from the traditional system. So can this method overcome weak points of the traditional measurements? We have to validate the result. So in the next lecture, not today, but next years, we will evaluate the accuracy and precision of this artificial intelligence approach to telemedicine. Okay, I think that we finished our time. If we are in presence, we can have a coffee or a tea together, but unfortunately, this is today's situation. I'm really sorry to be here and not with you, but I was happy to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. If you have any question, you can send me an email, or if you prefer to.
Our primary guest, Professor Dr. Eros G. Passero, delivered an outstanding address. This enabled us to obtain a great deal of knowledge about telemedicine and medicine 4.2. Now I request you, sir, to kindly accept our e-memento.
Screen share press करो. हाँ वो yes good. यो good. इधर press करो.
Sir, I request you to kindly accept our e-memento.
Stop sharing.
Okay, thank you to everybody. I think that if you need to speak, yes,
Hello, sir.
yes.
I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose to a vote of thanks on this wonderful occasion. Let me first of all start with the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our chief guest, Professor Eros Di Castro, the president of SRANC, Italy, Society of Neural Networks, professor of electronics at the Politecnico of Turin, Italy. And I also express my heartfelt thanks to our CEO, Sri Sai Prakash Leomuthu, Principal Dr. K. Kumaran, her HOD and Dean Academic Dr. J. Raja, and her valuable support towards this occasion. I would like to extend my thanks to our IEEE captain and IEEE student bank counselor, Dr. S. Brinda, for giving us a full support and freedom to organize this event. I wish to thank our society members and chapter advisor, Ms. Nasia Anjum, who worked hard to ensure this occasion became a massive success. Last but not least, I will wish to thank the staffs and students for cooperating and patience for making this function a great success. Thank you for all.
Sir, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, is it audible, sir?
Thank you very much, and we hope to see you maybe in the lab having a PhD with me, or
Yes, sir.
simply you can send me an email. Okay, bye bye. Thank you very
Okay, sir.
much.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.